Welcome to Grown Folk Business with Stephanie and Keith. For those of you that are returning, I want to welcome you back. And for those that may be new, I want to welcome you. Today's discussion is about our kids. Are we raising our boys differently than our girls?
Hey, welcome back to Grown Folks Business with Stephanie and Keith. How you doing, Keith?
I'm very good. How are you, Stephanie? And how is everyone?
I'm doing pretty good, and I hope everyone's doing well, too. So what do you think about this topic today?
Well, I've always kind of thought about that topic, but I thought about it more in the philosophical sense since I don't have kids and I haven't lived with somebody and helped them raise their kids. But I always thought that if I was around young men, whether it was my child or somebody else's, my philosophy would be from probably around the age of 5 or 6, they would know that when the magic date of them reaching 18 or them graduating high school, either one, they're going to have a different place of residence. And they have all those years for me to help them find out where that's going to be. They can come and visit where I live, but they cannot continue to live there. And if that is the long-term plan they have, unless something catastrophic happens like an illness or an injury, they should probably be on track to fulfill that because there's too many places that they can go to be all they can be without having to live under my roof.
Okay, so basically it sounds like what you're saying is that you will make the child aware early on that, look, when you reach the age of 18 or graduate high school, you need to be making your way on your own.
Not necessarily. I'll help you. You just can't live under my roof. You can visit. If you're in college, you come home for the summers. If you are want to join the Peace Corps, when your shift ends, you can come back home for a minute before, you decide on your next move. If you join the military, well, that's probably going to take care of itself because usually those are multi-year commitments. And the only way you're going to be back home is if they kick you out. But there are a bunch of different things that you can do not to have to be in somebody's house. But that takes preparation and planning. That's why I believe in doing it early. But unfortunately, the way my mind works, and this is not the way it should work, and that is if I had a daughter or if I was helping raise a daughter with a woman that I was with long term, probably that daughter could probably live under my roof probably just about as long as she wanted to. And I probably wouldn't even start questioning it much as long as she adhered to kind of the way I thought she should be living life until maybe she got to be around 35. Then maybe we could have a sit-down conversation about what's her plan for living someplace else. And that's not right. That's just the way I think.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you think it's okay to let your daughter stay till she's 35, but then like your son, he has to be making his way at 18, just to get a better understanding to why you feel the way you feel, if that's all right?
That's definitely all right. And I didn't say it was right, but that's just the way I feel. I feel men need to be independent. Barring they were born with some sort of mental or physical disability, barring that, they need to be able to go out here and make it in this world. Complacency is something that you do not want to let creep into your male offspring. I feel that is almost as bad as if you expose them to tuberculosis. It might not kill them, but it's going to set them way back. So that's not going to be allowed to get into there. And when you're on your own, not being able to have a roof, not being able to eat, not being able to have access to electricity and hot running water is an extreme motivation to get out here and get something done in life to basically have yourself at some level of prosperity. Because the alternative you do not want to consider if you're a man, because most men that don't make it are just on the street. Now, I don't know if I would push him to the point where it's either make it or be on the street, because I would help give them some support. But support doesn't mean you have to be living under my roof. Support just means maybe I help you pay your rent. If your car is not working or you don't have one, maybe I get you a car. Those are things that are support that'll help you. Just can't live under my roof.
Okay. Do you not think that letting your daughter stay in your house for as long as you are willing to, do you not think that that's a setback for her, that it can set her back in the same sense that it set the male back?
It absolutely does. But this is the thing. We're talking about two different people, me and the mother. Whether it's my biological child or, like I said, whether I'm just living and helping raise a child, that I have a long-term live-in commitment to the mother, even if we're not married. Or that's not my child, whether we're married or not. Because the mother, the same-sex parent, is probably going to be more the disciplinarian with that child. That's why you have a lot of single women who discipline their daughters and love their sons. Their daughters grow up to have graduated. Their daughters sometimes grow up and they know how to cook, they know how to clean, they know how to balance the checkbook, they know how to basically work with their credit. You know, they definitely have a plan that they know they have to work to be able to be financially independent enough to support themselves. Their mothers instill that in them. And they don't instill some of those same things in their sons because that's not necessarily the natural role. The opposite sex parent usually has sometimes more love for that child. That's why it helps to have two in the household. You've all heard that term, right? Takes two to raise a child. Well, I think that also has to do with the sex of the child and the sex of the parent and how they relate to each other. That's why a man is going to look that way towards his son, and the son will know that. And the daughter will be looked at that way by the mother, and the daughter will know that. And then they kind of balance each other out. The parents balance each other out with the love, support, and discipline.
Have you heard the saying that mothers raise their sons? I mean, mothers love their sons, but raise their daughters. I think that speaks to what you just said as far as how it seems like most mothers are probably harder on their daughters than they are their sons. So I would absolutely agree with you on that. I've seen that numerous times. Do you not think that you letting the woman stay or your daughter stay would set her back just as well as it would set the man back? I guess the answer to that question was, well, you don't feel like it's your role to play. You'll just leave that up to the mother? Would that be accurate?
It's my role to play, but that's not the way people are wired. There's an author, a lecturer, an educator named Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. I'll spell that for the people who are listening if they want to be able to Google this brother. He is a fantastic speaker. And he is the first person, and this was probably close to 35 plus years ago, that I heard him say this. The concept you just said. Too frequently, mothers love their sons and raise their daughters. That's almost a verbatim quote I heard out of his mouth. Jawanza, Jawanza, Kunjufu, Kunjufu, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. He's the first person I heard say that. In fact, he even said that was the way it was in his household, and at the time he had 2 boys. And he did something that I thought was really, really unique. And let me just run through it real quick. But this is not my statement or not my sentiment. This is the one coming from Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. He said that to teach his or help instill responsibility in his boys, not only to be independent, but to be responsible as far as going out and fathering a child at a young age. He said from the age of 1, he took $1,000 a year and put it into a savings account for each of his sons. He controlled the account, but he told both his sons that it was their account. He let them see the account periodically throughout the year, and let them see how it was growing. And he said this is the way the account was going to be administered. If either one of his sons was able to go through and graduate high school, that money would then be turned over to them at 18 to either go to college or start a business. But if either one of his sons got a girl pregnant, that all of that money would then be taken and go towards the rearing and raising and support of that child, and they wouldn't see a dime of it.
I think that's a very smart move. I mean, at the same time, it feels like a bit of a threat. Like you go and you mess up, and get a girl pregnant, then, hey, there go your funds. If you're in the position to be able to do that, I think that's an absolute great idea. I do. That's awesome. We separate the man and a woman, and we say, well, a woman should be raised like this and a man should be raised like this, especially when you think about it in the sense that, you'll let your daughter stay, but then you'll put a little bit more pressure on your son. And I guess we all can see why, because society say a man needs these things. But after we watched our children grow, like far as me experiencing the fact that my people was just like that, they raised their daughters and then they loved on their sons. That made me feel some type of way as a woman. And then it also made me have a little bit resentment towards man to a degree, if I'm being honest. Because it's like, why am I the only one who has to wash dishes? Why don't he have to wash dishes? Why don't he get to just take the garbage out while I do everything else around the house? It doesn't seem fair. And then I think that it also gives them a sense of entitlement as they grow older, and then they become husbands. They feel like a wife should be in the kitchen cooking and cleaning, which is why I feel like a lot of men cannot accept that a woman may want to do things outside of the household. She might want to have a career. She might want to do some of the same things he's doing. Well, a lot of men are not too keen on that. And I wonder if it stems from the upbringing. What do you think about that?
Could be. Could quite possibly be. I can't really say because that is an individual thing. But remember, don't lose sight of that if you're raising the child correctly, the mother and the father are going to have a lot of influence on both children simultaneously as they're being raised. Yeah, so if the father's a lot more lenient than he should be towards the daughter, the mother balances that out by being the disciplinarian. On the flip side, if the mother wants to love on the son and be way too lenient, you have the father there to correct that balance. So It's both sides. It's not just one. Theoretically, we're not talking about one-parent households, theoretically, in this example we're using.
Well, in reality, though, when we speak about reality, and most of the time, that's what we're actually dealing with, though, right? It would be ideal for the child to have the mother and father in the household, but 9 times out of 10, let's just say 7 times out of 10, you're going to have one or the other. Okay. A lot of us are raised by a single parent. So like me, I was raised by my father, my grandmother. My mother passed early on, so I didn't have that mother. So to watch how one would treat my brother compared to me, it was no balance. I was raised with a house full of women. So all of these women were kind of tough on the girls and very lenient on the boys. So there was no man to balance it out. And so my suggestion after having this conversation, it gave me a different perspective. What if we start just raising our kids the same? What if we start to treat them somewhat the same? Like me, I have a daughter and I have a son. Now my daughter is my stepdaughter, but I don't call her that because I've had her since she was a baby and that's my girl. But I have a daughter and I have a son. So I am pretty much the same with both of them. I feel like my son needs to be independent and be able to stand on his own 2 feet, just as I feel as my daughter, I want her to be independent and stand on her own 2 feet. I also want them to know how to keep themselves around the house. Like my son should know how to keep a house clean. He should know how to make certain meals for himself. And I feel the same way about my daughter. So when it comes to teaching them, it never pops in my mind, well, she's a girl, so she needs to know this, or he's a boy, he needs to be able to do this. I feel like they both need to be evenly yoked. They both need to be balanced out. To me, it's nothing more attractive than seeing a man who know how to keep a house and go out there and make that bag. And I think that with a woman, one who can keep a house, keep her man, take care of her kids, and still know how to be able to go out here and sustain herself and get a job, I think that that's impressive. So why not give it all to each kid? Let them figure it out through life. You know, how that show up in their worlds, but they have the tools that they need. What do you think?
Oh, that would be the optimum. Problem is, most people don't have those gifts to be able to transfer like that. Most people aren't that blessed. Most single individuals with kids by themselves, whether it's a man or a woman, many of them do not have the gifts to be able to impart to those different sexes all the things you just said. That would be the ideal. It just usually doesn't happen in real life very often.
And another thing, not to change the subject, but another thing I think too that we see a lot of is that whatever child that you have is the most responsible child, may it be woman or, you know, male, that a lot of times we tend to put more pressure on that child. How do you feel about that? Because I know that a lot of resentment stems from stuff like that. I guess what I'm asking is, if you have a child that's more responsible than the other, do you think it's fair to put extra pressure or to put extra responsibility on a child that you feel like you can rely on or trust more so than the other child?
No, it's definitely not fair, but it happens a lot. And this is the thing. That child who has that put on them, hopefully, they have a very, very kind, forgiving spirit. Because if they don't, the fact that they are capable of doing these things probably means they're capable of being financially more prosperous when they get to be an adult, to achieve more things, to accumulate more resources. And people can be very stingy with their resources toward people that they have grown to have resentment towards or grown to dislike because they feel they have not been fairly treated, either as an adult or a child.
Right.
That's why hopefully that person has not only the gifts to be able to handle all those responsibilities and still do the other things while they grow, but they have a very forgiving and understanding spirit. But if they don't, they can grow up and say, I don't want to have anything to do with any of y'all. And I don't need any of y'all. And the phone better not ring. And you ask me to do anything because our association is done because of the way you treated me.
Yes, you are so correct, Tam. That's how it turns out. I think that when we tell a woman that it's okay for her to have a little bit more time than like her brother, I don't really know that we're helping her in the sense that we believe we are. And I do understand what you mean with if mom's there, mom's going to be like, oh, no, honey, you ain't getting no shortcuts either. But like I said, what happens if mom's not there? And then, you know, you've taught your child that she gets a pass, but you've taught your son that he doesn't. So I guess what I'm learning from this conversation is that men tend to love on their daughters and raise their sons, just as a lot of women tend to raise their daughters and love on their sons. You know, why not just love on both kids and raise both kids versus loving on one and raising the other?